Hello everyone, welcome to this video. Have you ever wondered how ChatGPT is actually built? It feels like magic, but what is really going on behind the scenes? In this video series, we will be covering exactly that. So let's get started. What is an LLM? ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Perplexity, all of these technologies that you've been using, they are called as LLMs. And you can think of it as a black box. You can think of it like a factory, and there are a lot of workers here in the factory who can do a specific task, who can learn a specific task, and their goal is to learn the human language. Their goal is to respond in human language. Their goal is to talk like humans, right? In simple words, it's LLM is a neural network which is designed to understand and respond in human-like text. There is this input that goes through this complex structure, and we will be talking about each and every detail. How is the structure made? So when you ask this complex structure a question, it is able to answer and talk to you like a human does. So that's amazing, right? Now let's talk about why it is called large and what does language actually mean here. So it's called large because of two different reasons. Reason one, it's large because it has a lot of workers. It has a lot of parameters to train. It learns a lot of different parameters. So the first large comes from this. And the second that we're talking about, it is trained on a very large corpus. So you can imagine that any book written in the world, all of those Wikipedia, right? We have fed all of this information to each of these models. And these models are so powerful that they can extract patterns, learn patterns from all of these text, which is there. So just to give you a picture, right? So in 2017, if you see, the model had 117 million parameters. And in 2020, GPT-3 came out and it had 175 billion parameters. And now in 2023, GPT-4 came out and it had 1.5 trillion parameters. That is huge. I mean, it's very tough for the human brain to actually understand, like, what does 100 million mean? What does 1 billion mean, right? So I have created a very good visual here for you guys to understand. You can think of GPT-3 like a small suitcase you have. So whenever you go traveling, right, you pack your bags, right? So you can think of GPT as the first model, which is this one. It's like a small suitcase. Now GPT-3 compared to that is like a bus. So whenever you go to the airport, let's say, and you use a bus, just imagine how many of these small suitcases can you fit in one small bus, right? So from 2017 to 2020, this is what the huge leap was. 117 million, 275 billion parameters. And in 2023, GPT-4 came out and it has 1.5 trillion parameters. So to put that into perspective, you can think of a big ship, like you can think of Titanic. So these ships are the ones where even like buses, lorries, and a lot of these trucks gets transferred. So that's how big and how fast we are evolving in the computer science industry. And recently, OpenAI also published the GPT-5 model. And where does this word language comes from, right? So language comes from, like, what are these huge models goal is? Like, what is the goal of making and training such a huge model? It is to do like the natural language processing tasks. Things like answering questions, translating text, analyzing sentiment, right? And the answering question bit of part, I think almost everyone, a huge majority of the world has already used it. When you use ChatGPT, when you use Claude, Gemini, you are essentially doing this, right? And people feel that there is actually a human on the other side who's talking to them. It feels like they're texting a friend, right? So they get emotionally connected to them. So that is the power of these parameters. You can basically think of these parameters as workers in a factory, right? So each worker is responsible to learn something. And in this huge factory, there are so many workers. Now let's talk about what is the secret sauce of all of these LLMs. So in 2017, Google published a paper which revolutionized the entire NLP industry. So this paper is called as Attention is All You Need. This was really a transformative paper. It was a paper that created so much impact. It is based on a technology called as the transformer. So you can think of the transformer as the heart of these LLMs, right? And the heart of each transformer is attention. So these LLMs, they are powered by transformers, and each of these transformers are powered by a technique called as attention. And that's where you see the name comes from. It says attention is all you need. To give you an intuition of why was this paper so transformative, for example, if you are reading a murder story, let's say, right? So in the start, let's say there are 3 people in one house, one of them gets killed. Now there will be huge paragraphs about each of these characters. Like character A is this, character B is this, character C was this, and the kind of activities that they do. The last line is, therefore, the murder of the story was done by Dash, right? To actually find out who was the murderer, you need to pay attention to very small details. You need to pay heed to each and every paragraph, each and every line, right? That's what the power of the attention mechanism is. It can know which part of the word is important, which part of the sentence is more important, what sentence can I forget, what sentence is important to remember. All of these things are done by this attention architecture which is there. But previously the model, they weren't capable of doing all of this. If you see here, there is inputs, right? And I give a sentence, for example, India is a great dash. So like we as humans know like words like nation, country is very obvious for us, right? But how do these models learn all of this? Generally, how these models get trained, they are trained to predict the next best possible word. And that's how they can talk like humans. They can converse like humans. So when you give this input, the input goes to a very complex computation, and we will be covering all of this computation in the further videos. And then it outputs some probabilities. Now, what are these probabilities that are being outputted? What this model will do, it will give a score to each and every word to the output. So for example, let's say dog, cat, nation, country, and then there is city. What is the probability that the next word here will be dog? India's a great dog. No, right? It will be close to 0. For cat, it will be 0. Country and nation can be 50-50, right? It can be either nation or it can be country. So this will be like very close to 0.5. This can also be very close to 0.5. But city, it will be close to 0. And where is all of this knowledge coming from? So we are trusting Wikipedia. We are trusting all the books that have been written by us, right? The data sets and the data source that we're inputting all of these models, those data inputs are teaching our model that yes, this is the next best word here. I mean, it really depends on the quality of the data that you're using to train your language model. These language models can learn anything. If you teach them gibberish, they will learn gibberish, right? They don't actually understand. They don't actually know that, yeah, what is a nation, what is a country, like we humans do, right? But they just know that this was the pattern in the data and probably this is the next word. It's not really magic that's happening behind the hoods. Where does LLM fit in the entire AI landscape? If you think about AI is this huge, huge bucket. Classify any system with a human-like intelligence as AI. Now, moving on to the next bucket. A smaller subset of this is machine learning. So these are models that can learn from data. Data is really, really important in this case. So they basically learn rules, they learn patterns. That's how like you build machine learning models. They are entirely dependent on data. The next subset for this is called as deep learning. So deep learning, as I showed you above in this video, machine learning with neural networks, and it consists of many layers. So generally it is very tough to explain why a deep learning model is giving some kind of an output, but it is generally easier to explain why a machine learning model is able to predict something. Large language models, LLMs, they are a part of deep learning. These are deep neural networks for especially parsing and generating human-like text. So you can use these neural networks for a lot of different things as well, but LLMs are specialized for generating human-like text. And now next comes something called a generative AI. I'm sure like a lot of you must have heard about it, right? So generative AI involves the use of deep learning networks to create new content. You must be knowing about Ghibli art, right? So Ghibli art, and then creating a lot of images, videos, all of this is possible using generative AI. Now let's see, how is an LLM trained? So the first part of making and building an LLM is called as the pre-training part of it. We start with a huge amount of internet data. We'll start with a lot of books. We'll start with Wikipedia and a lot of papers. All of these is fed into the LLM and it is trained on predicting the next word in the sequence. Imagine you are telling a kid that this word comes after this. This particular words come after this. So this is how an LLM is trained. And when you train the LLM in this way, you obtain something called as the foundational model. Now let's come to the second step, and this is called as fine-tuning. When you have trained the model on this vast internet data, you won't have an expert model. It will be a model that knows a lot, but it does not know very deeply. In business use cases, you need to have an expert, right? Let's say you want to make an LLM who is expert in cricket. Collect a lot of human experts who are expert in crickets. Let's say you take the help of Sachin Tendulkar, Virat Kohli, a lot of commentators, right? And you tell them to curate like a specific label data set. This is very expensive and time consuming, but for business use cases, this is what it's done. A lot of businesses use this technique, and this is called as fine tuning. So now you know how are LLMs like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude made. See you in the next video.